¿Qué pasó, güey? It's your homeboy Quetzalcoatl hitting you up with another video. Today's video is going to cover the death of Vernon Forrest. Very sad and tragic story in the history of boxing. One of the saddest stories in boxing. I'm gonna give you a bitch ass a brief history of Vernon Forrest, as well as to the events that led to his death, and my thoughts on his death. And I'm also going to show you a video shortly after all this shit that will show in detail, everything that went down that led to the murder of Vernon Forrest. Vernon Forrest was born on January 12, 1971. He had a stellar amateur record, compiling 225 wins with only 16 losses. In 1991, he won the silver at the World Amateur Boxing Championships, losing to Costa Zoo, who was also another Hall of Fame fighter. Vernon Forrest had made the 1992 Olympic team, but he ended up losing in the first round to Peter Richardson. Vernon Forrest had attributed this first round loss to food poisoning that he had got the day before his fight. After turning pro, he won his first championship versus Raul Frank in 2001, became the IBF welterweight champion. His most notable fights, the fights that Vernon Forrest will be remembered for, are his two victories over Shane Mosley, who at the time Shane Mosley was like the man in boxing. There was a consensus that he was the best fighter at that time. And Vernon Forrest beat him convincingly. Although the two losses to Mayorga shortly after were a setback to Vernon Forrest, but he was able to come back and win a 154-pound title from Baldomir. It was a vacant WBC title. He had lost that title to Sergio Mora, and Sergio Mora was his opponent for his last two fights that Vernon Forrest had fought. After losing to Sergio Mora, he decided to have a rematch in September of 2008, and Vernon Forrest beat Sergio Mora convincingly in a decision. On July 25th, 2009, Vernon Forrest was heading home with his godson. They decided to stop at a gas station, and he was robbed, and that eventually led to his murder. He was shot to death. The video that I'm gonna show you is from it's from HBO. I don't own that motherfucker. I'm showing this for educational purposes. It's from Real Sports with Brian Gumbel, and that gives you all the details on what happened when he died. Some of the pictures that you've seen, they're from the funeral from Vernon Forrest. I just think it was some sad shit. Vernon Forrest was a good-hearted person. This was somebody who started a foundation called the Destiny's Child, Destiny's Child Foundation, which helped mentally disabled people. He was an active person in his community. Vernon Forrest, he was a role model for the kids that were growing up in the neighborhood where he was from. He was killed in Atlanta, Georgia. This was somebody that the youth could look up to idolize, and all of that was taken away over some materialistic shit. All over some bullshit. He died. And it just seems like that happens a lot. A lot of good people who don't deserve any fucked up shit happening to them. It seems that a lot of that shit comes their way. This dude couldn't even enjoy, the fruits of his labor, everything that he worked hard for. This dude, he was only 38 years old when he got killed. And all the money that he made, he wasn't able to enjoy that. the people who killed him that were involved in his murder. It was three of them. It was a 20-year-old Demario Ware, 25-year-old Jaquante Cruz, and 30-year-old Sharman Sinkfield. It is believed that Sinkfield was the shooter as of June 4th, 2012. If you haven't heard, Sinkfield was sentenced to death, and Ware and Cruz were sentenced to life in prison. So, Sinkfield, he gonna get it. They gonna put his ass to bed. You know what I'm saying? And the other two, Ware and Cruz, unless one of them motherfuckers got some Michael Schofield in his ass and they try to do some prison break shit, they finna be in there for a while. So don't drop the sub, homie. So that was it as far as Vernon Forrest is concerned. May he rest in peace, and he will always be remembered. So here's the video. Let me know your comments. Let me know what you think about Vernon Forrest's death. Subscribe to my shit, and this is your homeboy Quetzalcoatl. Sign the fuck on out.
John, thanks. You got it. Just days after hearing about the deaths of Alexis Arguello and Arturo Gatti, boxer Vernon Forrest told a friend to watch out because he said these things happen in threes. Forrest obviously figured another famous boxer was due to die, but there was no way he could have imagined it might be him. That Forrest met a violent end outside of the ring came as a shock to those who knew him in his home state of Georgia, because Vernon Forrest was everything most ring champions are not. A conscientious young man who had majored in business administration, Forrest wasn't boisterous, wasn't flashy, and was known throughout Atlanta as someone dedicated to helping those in need. He was just 38 years old and looking to his next fight when he was killed.
The guy was probably standing like right over there. The car was parked pretty much by the Coke sign.
Okay. As he returned to the scene of the crime, 11-year-old Shamar Guillory found that this Atlanta gas station seemed to be far less ominous. What's it feel like to be back here?
It kind of brings back bad memories. You look back at it, and you could kind of see like this is where it all happened, and it doesn't even look like it could happen here.
Yeah, it looks a lot different than the brightness of day, doesn't it?
Yeah, it looks like a real nice place, and like nothing could really happen.
But something did happen at this gas station on the night of July 25th, 2009. This is where Shamar saw his godfather, former boxing champion Vernon Forrest, being robbed at gunpoint. The suspect's car was captured by security cameras pulling up to the pump shortly after 11 p.m. According to police, the man getting out of that car, 30-year-old Sharman Sinkfield, and his accomplices had planned to go clubbing that night. When Vernon Forrest pulled up a few minutes later in his supercharged Jaguar with Florida plates and his godson in tow, police say the robbers saw what guys on the street here call an easy lick, an out-of-towner who'd probably not fight back. But that was a far cry from who Vernon Forrest really was. Vernon Forrest was a fighter. He'd used his boxing skills to fight his way out of one of the poorest neighborhoods in Augusta, Georgia, and onto the 1992 U.S. Olympic boxing team that went to Spain. That's where former heavyweight champion Evander Holyfield remembers seeing Forrest's fighting spirit firsthand on the streets of Barcelona.
Now, Vernon walking down the street, somebody snatched his hat and ran. Vernon chased that person off through the street. If we just looking at it, man, it's just a hat. That's the type of person it is. That whatever you do to him, he was gonna get you.
Forrest fought on to a distinguished 16-year professional career, twice defeating top-ranked Shane Mosley and winning 4 major titles to take his place among boxing's elite.
I've been mean all my life. I grew up hard, man. I'm a mean person. I've been mean. You know how to turn it on and turn it off.
Though in battle he was mean, Forrest was also one of boxing's legitimate good guys, well known as a gracious and generous man in his adopted hometown of Atlanta. He was a constant presence at the local police athletic league and in the group homes that he founded for the mentally disabled.
They're part of our family. For Christmas, I invite them all over to my house because some of them don't have family, so we are their family. We are their permanent guardians, so they're our extended family.
Man, I see you. Watch out there.
He just was one of those kind of guys that just had a tremendous heart.
There was room in Forrest's heart for LaShonda Guillory's son, Shamar, who was just a toddler 9 years ago when his mother met the boxer in the Guillory's hometown of Houston. The two briefly dated and became good friends. Such good friends that even when she ended their relationship, Forrest insisted on continuing one with her son.
And by this time, I had moved on. He said, I love him.
So he became the primary male figure in Shamar's life?
Absolutely. Like, I can call Vernon and say, hey, he's doing this, and I can put him on the phone, and he can straighten up in a matter of seconds. And when we hang up, and he's like, Mama, he scares me to the core, you know.
He scared you? How so?
His voice was scary. I was just like 6 and just listening to the voice of just, man, you better straighten up. It was like, whoa. I was like, wow.
So he was a disciplinarian?
Yeah.
The boy and the boxer's relationship was such that last July, Shamar's mother sent her son on his first solo trip to stay with his Uncle Vernon in Atlanta, a chance for the boy to bond with the father figure he didn't have at home. At the time, Atlanta was hot in both temperature and temperament.
I just want justice, and I want the violence to stop.
Midsummer wave of violent crime had people on edge, especially in the inner city, where witnesses and victims were often reluctant to come forward.
Our city has been brought to its knees by this violence.
It was amid that backdrop that for 6 days, as Forrest trained, he also tutored Shamar in the ways of the world. On Twitter early that week, Forrest posted a photo of Shamar sleeping in his car and wrote, I took my godson to the gym and wore him out. What'd you guys do during the week?
Well, we talked, but it was more about being a man and that a man doesn't leave his family. He will stand by his family and he'll take care, he takes care of his mom.
It was on the 7th night of Shamar's visit that the pair pulled into this Chevron station in the shadows of downtown Atlanta. You're the one who wanted to stop, right?
Yeah. I had to real bad. I had to urinate real bad.
You're the last person he knew who spoke with him.
Right.
Carmen Anthony was a friend of Forrest's, and she was on the phone with him as he arrived at the gas station, and Shamar went to the restroom.
Oh, my Lord, Vernon was in such a good mood that night. He was just laughing and joking on me, and we were joking on each other. And then he said, Carmen, he said, wow, my tire's flat as, you know. And I said, really? He said, I'm going to fill this, put some air in this, and I'm headed on home.
By the time I get back outside, then that's when it happens.
And all of a sudden I heard, laid on the ground, laid on the ground.
I'm walking towards the car, and then I see a guy standing over Vernon, and you hear like a click. He says, that's why I got you, nigga. And
He said what?
That's why I got you, nigga.
I said, Vernon, you have your gun on you? And he said, motherfuckers think they can just take from you.
And so Vernon says, oh, you robbing me? And then that's when I see Vernon pull out a gun.
Look closely at the far right corner of your screen just below the blue awning. That's Shamar walking away from the camera towards Forrest's car near an air pump just as the alleged gunman, 20-year-old Demario Ware, darts away to the left, having stolen Forrest's watch and his championship ring. Seconds later, Forrest, armed with his own legally registered gun, sprints behind in hot pursuit.
I could just hear him just running and running. And, you know, I'd listen, you know, I said, let me try to hear what's going on.
I was saying to myself, my first time out here is already some trouble. Right after I say that, pow, you just hear a big gunshot.
According to the police, Demario Ware escaped into this apartment complex where he was photographed gun in hand. Investigators believe Forrest had already given up the chase when he encountered Charmon Sinkfield, the alleged lookout man from back at the gas station. Police say the two exchanged words, and as Forrest turned to walk away, Sinkfield killed him, shooting him in the back 7 times. No one will ever know exactly why Vernon Forrest chose to chase after the man who'd robbed him as he inflated his tire at this air pump. Some say it was his fighter's instinct. Some say it was a matter of principle. Still others claim he might have done it in order to save future victims from the same assailant. But LaShonda Guillory, young Shamar's mother, believes the real reason why Forrest chose to chase his assailant down those streets lies in a promise that Vernon had made to her shortly before he was attacked.
I had been calling, I must admit, probably 10 times a day. And he's like, listen, I'm trying to teach him how to be a man, and you keep pacifying him. And he said, man, I'll guard him with my life. He probably was thinking, I know I have this kid in this car. Me running them away from the car is keeping him away from danger.
There isn't a part of you that thinks, boy, if he didn't have this gun, he wouldn't have gone after him, he'd still be alive today.
No, because I know the kind of person he was, and he was a protector. And so I think that's why he did run after the guys.
When Forrest was murdered, Shamar was still cowering inside the locked car at the gas station until a passerby came knocking.
He was wearing a pink shirt, and I said, yeah. And then he said, well, he just got shot.
The stranger then led the terrified boy to the site of the shooting.
What did you see?
They wouldn't let me see him. I said, is he hurt? Is he dead? They wouldn't answer me. I'm just sitting there like, hello, answer my question, is he dead? And they say, well, you might not see him for a long, long time.
From the site of the robbery, one can see the police headquarters where Forrest's family and friends gathered late that night. Among them was Vernon's longtime manager and friend, Charles Watson, and he was enraged.
I had 2 Glocks, I had an assault rifle. I just wanted to find them.
As authorities sought to piece together what had happened, Watson left the police department that night and drove the mean streets of Atlanta, trying to hunt down those involved in his friend's murder.
You'd have killed him.
That night I would have. That night I would have. Yeah. I was reaching out. I'm saying, if I don't get you, somebody gonna get you. Somebody gonna get close to you. Somebody gonna get close to you who loved him, who loved Vernon the way I loved him. I came down this street right here. It was a drug dealer. He was right in this area. Well, I said, they just killed my brother, my best friend, tonight. And he said, I can't give you any names. He said, but I can give you some descriptions. And I said, well, give me, I took out some money. I said, give me what you can give me.
For Watson, what began as a crusade for blood soon became a quest for justice as something remarkable unfolded. Members of a community conditioned not to cooperate with the police started to come forward and open up to Watson. Having been raised in the same neighborhood where Forrest was killed, he says he became a conduit, moving information from the streets to the cops.
Give me some specific examples, if you would, of what kind of leads you were able to get in those first few days after Vernon's death.
The description of the guys, the trigger man, the house, that he was living in at the time, the gun that he used.
Isn't that fairly uncommon? I mean, you're from the hood. People aren't inclined to share information, aren't inclined to, bad term in this case, but to snitch.
It's uncommon. It's very uncommon, But I think the media helped us a lot in terms of releasing the footage that they had on what type of person Vernon was. And because of the goodness of Vernon, of his heart and the things that he had done,
Within 2 weeks, 3 suspects were identified and taken into custody.
My hat goes off to all of the police officers, because I'm not devaluating anything that they did and how they responded in terms of working the case, but they allowed us and all of the people to be a team. I don't get the glory, I don't get the credit for it, don't want the credit for it. The only thing is I have a little peace in my heart knowing that, these people being brought to justice and they were apprehended.
But only a little right now.
Only a little.
Atlanta's mayor, Kasim Reed, was just a candidate for the office last summer when he campaigned on the very spot where Forrest was attacked.
And there needs to be a clear message sent to them that we are not playing and we're not going to tolerate it at all.
The Fulton County District Attorney has since charged the suspects with murder and has announced that he'll seek the death penalty for all 3. That surely matters, but it's of small comfort to those Vernon Forrest left behind.
He's very angry. He blames himself, because he asked to use the restroom. And it's hard for me, and it's hard for him.
Most people are watching this. Never met your Uncle Vernon. What do you want them to remember about your Uncle Vernon?
I'm gonna look into the cameras and I'm gonna tell him. He was the most outgoing and nicest person you could ever meet. As long as you're getting an education and you're trying to do it on your own, he will help you. And I don't think they should have took his life like that. At least I know it was his time to go, but he could have died a most softer way than dying like that.